He looked at me like I was a guest who overstayed her welcome, but I wasn't a guest. I paid for half that house. I bought their safety, their comfort, their dreams, and they evicted me like a memory they didn't want framed on the wall anymore. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. I just nodded, picked up my bags, and walked out of the house I had helped buy, without a raised voice, without a single tear. What they didn't know by morning, that house would no longer be theirs to hold. I had moved in with 2 suitcases, 1 faded quilt, and a framed photo of my late husband, James. That's all. No furniture, no conditions. Just trust. Trust that my only son, Josh, wouldn't forget what love looks like. That Megan, his new wife, would keep her promises. It wasn't a handout. It was my life savings $180, $1,000, James's insurance payout after he passed. Money meant to carry me gently into old age, but I handed it to Josh without hesitation. It's for your future, I told him. For our family. They had found a house in Charlotte, 4 bedrooms, perfect for someday. When the bank turned them down, I stepped in. Megan had hugged me tight and whispered, "You'll always have a home with us." Josh said, "You'll never have to lift a finger again, Mom." For a moment, I believed them. The house was modern gray floors, white walls, all hard edges, and echoing hallways. My room was a small guest suite downstairs. No closet, no shower twin bed. But I said nothing. I was just happy to have footsteps above my ceiling again. Josh made me coffee every morning the first week. Megan showed me how to use their smart thermostat, though she sighed every time I forgot. We had dinner together once and they laughed at my stories. I memorized that laugh. I didn't know it would vanish so soon. The little things changed first. The Wi-Fi password got reset. My Netflix stopped working. Megan started locking the upstairs fridge and calling it meal prep. Then came the jokes to her friends on speakerphone about living with 2 kids and a grandma. One morning I heard Megan whisper in the kitchen, "This isn't sustainable." I held my breath behind the wall. "She's sweet," she said, "but we need our own life." I kept cooking. I kept folding towels and wiping countertops. I smiled when Megan brought up turning the downstairs den into a nursery someday. I even smiled when she said it in front of me like I wasn't standing there. But then I heard it. Josh's voice from around the corner. I was heading to the kitchen for tea when I froze. "She won't leave if we keep being nice," he said. "We've got to push her out." Megan didn't hesitate. "She won't sign her share over unless she feels unwanted. Make it uncomfortable. She'll leave herself." My breath left my body like a slow leak. I stared at the wallpaper I'd helped them choose just a week before. My only son, my blood, plotting against me like I was an unwanted tenant. That evening, I made chicken Alfredo, his favorite, set the table, lit a candle, neither of them showed. Megan said she already ate. Josh stayed upstairs. I ate alone. I thought of every scraped knee, every birthday cake, every night I stayed up with him when he was sick. I thought of the box in my suitcase filled with drawings he made in elementary school stick figures and misspelled love notes. I wasn't a person to them anymore. I was square footage. The next morning, Megan walked in while I was washing strawberries. Her arms were folded. "Linda," she said, "we think it's time you found something more permanent. For your comfort, of course." Josh came in behind her, sipping his coffee. "We don't have space for you anymore, Mom," he said. "You need to go." I wiped my hands dry, turned to face them, and smiled. "Okay," I said. "I'll be out by tonight." Josh nodded like it was a business deal. Megan blinked, maybe expecting a fight. But I didn't fight. I packed my clothes, James's photo, a paperback I never finished, and the red folder I'd hidden deep in my suitcase. The house deed, my name right next to Josh's, co-owner 49%. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't slam a door. I called a cab, rode in silence, and carried that red folder like it was a newborn baby. I had booked a room at a small motel a week before, not because I thought this day would come, but because something in me whispered, "Be ready." The motel was clean enough. The lamp flickered. The walls smelled like someone else's dinner, but it was mine. I paid for 3 nights in cash and told the front desk I didn't want housekeeping. I laid on the stiff bed, turned off the TV, and held the deed against my chest. I wasn't angry, I wasn't surprised, but I was done. The next morning, I printed 5 copies of the deed at the motel's tiny business center. 1 for me, 1 for a lawyer if it came to that, 3 extras because a woman like me learns not to count on anyone else to remember the truth. Later, as I sipped weak diner coffee, my phone rang. Unknown number. Something told me to answer. "Miss Carter," a man said. "This is Brad from Carolina Private Lending. You're listed as co-owner of a property at 124 Grayson Park Drive." My heartbeat slowed. "Yes," I said. "Is something wrong?" There's been a default, he replied. Your son took out a $95,000 loan against the house for a business venture. Payments haven't been made. We've issued 3 warnings. We're moving toward foreclosure. I didn't panic. I asked for details. Brad was polite, precise. I had 2 options, he said. Pay off the debt or sign my share away and let the house go. I asked him to send the papers. That afternoon, I sat in the motel with my pen, the same one I used to sign Josh's school field trip forms, and I wrote my name on every line. No shaking, no second thoughts. An hour later, Brad confirmed receipt. The house would be foreclosed. I turned off my phone, sat still, and listened. Not for an apology, not for a knock on the door. Just for the silence. It was the first I'd heard in years that didn't hurt. Josh's first text came at 8:03 the next morning. Hey, did you cancel something with the house? We just got a weird letter from some lender. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because silence had finally started to feel like a choice, not a punishment. 3 hours later, there's a notice on the front door, call me. Still nothing. I sat by the motel window watching the breeze catch the edge of the parking lot flag, holding a cup of instant coffee I didn't bother to sweeten. I didn't need sugar to know what bitterness tasted like. I'd been swallowing it for weeks. At 3:17 p.m., Megan broke her silence. Linda, please, we're confused. Just tell us what's going on. I turned off my phone, not because I was cruel, but because I knew what would happen if I listened too long. Megan would find the right trembling pitch, the right tears, and I would forget again. I would forget that I was never truly invited to belong in that house, only tolerated until I wasn't. 42 hours later, the official foreclosure notice was taped to their door. I didn't see it with my own eyes. I didn't have to. Megan posted a panicked message on the neighborhood Facebook group instead. Urgent. Our home is being targeted by some kind of legal scam. If anyone knows foreclosure lawyers, please message me. We're devastated. I read her post from the motel bed, sipping motel brewed coffee from a paper cup, scrolling through her unraveling like it was a soap opera I hadn't auditioned for. People rushed to her aid. What happened? You two were doing so well. This is heartbreaking. How can we help? She replied to every comment like a woman running for sympathy office. Not one mention of the loan. Not one word about the money I gave. Just vague pain, a victim's halo, and a twist of the truth so tight it could strangle. We're being betrayed by someone we trusted, she wrote. Someone who should have protected us. And just like that, the narrative shifted. Not because of facts, but because pain, when performed, always finds an audience. My phone buzzed again, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, a woman from my old church, even James's sister, all asking the same thing. Linda, what's happening? Are you okay? Did you really... No one asked how it felt to be thrown out, to be whispered about like a burden. No one asked why I left, only what I had done. I thought about replying, thought about uploading the deed, the transfer receipts, the texts I'd saved, the loan notice. But then I remembered what my father once told me while shelling peas on a porch in Georgia. Don't roll in the mud with people who enjoy being dirty. You'll get filthy and they'll call it fair. So I stayed quiet until the sheriff called. Miss Carter, he said gently, this is Officer Reeves with the county. Just a courtesy call. There's a formal lockout scheduled at the Grayson Park property. Friday, 10 a.m. You don't need to be present, but we wanted you to know. I thanked him. Nothing else, no questions, no small talk. That night I couldn't sleep, not from guilt, but from the weight of imagining it. Josh opening the door in his sweatpants, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Megan gasping mascara smudged, clutching a phone like it could save them. Their furniture, their polished life on the curb in trash bags. And me, invisible in a motel room eating crackers for dinner. I didn't feel triumph. I felt stillness. They had chosen every step. Friday came. I didn't go. At 10:42 a.m., my phone buzzed again. No caller ID, voicemail. Josh's voice tight and low. I don't know what you did, but we're out, gone. You ruined us, Mom. Hope you're happy. That was it. No remorse, just blame. At noon, Megan sent her own. If you wanted to hurt us, congrats. We're being evicted. I hope you sleep well tonight. You've destroyed your family. That word echoed louder than the rest. Family. Like it was mine alone to uphold. Like they hadn't dropped it, cracked it, stomped on it, and left it at my feet weeks ago. That night I didn't cry. I walked to the corner store, bought a notebook, and on the first page I wrote, today they lost everything. Then on the next page I wrote something softer, and I found my silence. The days that followed were quiet. My phone stayed off. My meals were simple. My dreams uncluttered. But they didn't stay quiet for long. 2 days after the lockout, Megan posted a 10-slide Instagram breakdown. Pastel backgrounds, cursive font, title When Family Betrays You. Slide by slide, she told the world how they had opened their home to a grieving elderly parent, how they were blindsided by legal trickery, how they were now homeless. She called it elder abuse, and the comments. This is why boundaries matter. Some people just want control forever. You're so brave, Megan. Stay strong. I kept scrolling until I saw it. Josh's comment. You did everything right. You protected our future. She chose destruction. That line sat in my chest like a stone in soup. He didn't say my name. He didn't need to. Everyone knew who the she was. I almost laughed. This was the same boy who once cried when I raised my voice, who brought me wildflowers from the neighbor's yard and said they were for the best mom. Now he was painting me as a monster to strangers. I didn't reply, not out of dignity. But because monsters don't explain themselves, they disappear. Then came the knock. It was soft, like a question wrapped in guilt. I didn't answer right away. Eventually, I opened the door a crack. She was in her 50s, vaguely familiar. Linda Carter, she asked. I'm Doreen. I work with the City Housing Board. I saw some things online. I just wanted to hear your side. We sat in the motel lobby. Fluorescent lights, lukewarm coffee, a vending machine humming in the background. I told her everything. Every dollar, every insult. Every night I cried into a pillow so no one would hear. She didn't take notes. She didn't record. I'm not pressed, she said. I'm just tired of watching good women get smeared by people with matching throw pillows and Instagram filters. When she stood up to leave, she handed me a card. If you're looking for something better, I know people. I've got strings I can pull. It was the first real kindness I'd felt in weeks. That night, I checked my email. A new message. Subject request for interview, Charlotte Local Magazine. I didn't open it. I just forwarded it to myself with a new subject line. Hold on to this. The story wasn't over. Not even close. The next time they reached out, they didn't use words. They used views. It started with a TikTok video. Megan stood in front of a U-Haul mascara, streaked like war paint baby bump prominent, under a tight sweater holding a cardboard sign that read, "Evicted by my mother-in-law." 80,000 views in 2 days. The caption read, "When your own blood turns on you, pray for us." I watched it in silence. Again. And again, my jaw didn't move, my eyes didn't blink. But something inside me curled into itself like a paper burning from the edges. People in the comments tagged news stations. One woman offered to start a GoFundMe. And then like an aftershock, my old church pastor texted me. Linda, what is going on? Can I call you? That was the final crack in the dam. I opened the folder I kept hidden beneath my motel bed. The deed, the wire transfer of $180, the foreclosure email, Megan's text. Once she's gone, we can finally plan the nursery. I took screenshots of everything. I didn't write a caption. I didn't explain myself. I just sent the evidence. To the pastor, to my cousins, to the church group chat. 5 minutes later, my niece replied, "Oh, so she lied." Then silence. Not another word. But I knew they saw it. I knew something shifted. That night, a new message came, this time from Josh. "Please call me, just talk to me." 10 minutes later, "I know things got bad, but you're still my mom." I didn't reply, not because I hated him, but because I knew how this game worked now. This wasn't reconciliation. It was a rerun. I stared at the screen until my fingers curled around the edges of the phone. Then I locked it, slid it into the drawer. I whispered into the room, barely audible. "Still your mom, but not your fool." And I slept 8 uninterrupted hours for the first time in months. The next morning, I opened the motel door and found a vase of white lilies sitting just outside. Josh used to bring me those when he dented the car as a teen, when he failed a test. They meant apology, or at least the performance of one. There was a note attached, "Let's talk, please." No name. I didn't touch them, left them overnight. By morning, they wilted. The front desk clerk asked if I wanted them tossed. I said yes. Then at 2:11 p.m. there was a knock. I knew it was him before I looked. Josh. His eyes looked sunken, like someone had carved the light out of them while he wasn't paying attention. He held a manila folder. No flowers this time. Just desperation. I opened the door an inch. 5 minutes, I said. He nodded like a child. We sat across from each other at the motel's tiny round table. He looked around the room like he expected it to be a trap. "I messed up," he started. No tears, just flat. "I know I should have told you about the loan. I shouldn't have let Megan. I panicked." I waited, said nothing. "She's pregnant," he added, as if that explained betrayal. I looked at him then. Really looked. and for a fleeting second, I saw the boy who used to run to the door when I came home from night shift. The boy who would sit on the kitchen floor with me eating cereal at 2 a.m. But that boy was gone. This man across from me had erased me from his life, and then from the internet. I didn't come to argue, he said. Just wondering if you'd be willing to sign something to help us negotiate with the lender. He slid the folder across the table. I read it once. Then again. It wasn't just a consent form. It was a partial power of attorney, dressed in legal jargon, granting him access to negotiate on behalf of the foreclosure, including my assets, my retirement. I set the paper down slowly. Get out, I said. He blinked. Mom. Out. He stood like someone who thought he still had leverage. We're gonna lose the baby's future, Mom. I stared him down. You already did. He left without another word. I locked the door, sat still until the shaking in my hands calmed. Then I called the front desk and asked to be moved to a different floor. I packed in 15 minutes. New room, new number on the door. Same silence, but now it felt protective. That night, I blocked his number, not out of anger, out of survival. Because there was still a part of me hidden deep in my ribs that wanted to believe he meant it. That part would get me hurt again if I let it breathe. The next morning, I walked to the City Housing Board office. Doreen smiled before I even spoke. I want to move on, I told her. Not just from them, from all of it. She didn't say I'm proud of you. She didn't say you're doing the right thing. She just slid a folder across the desk. Senior Housing Coastal Options. The first listing. 2-bedroom condo, ocean access, near Wilmington, rent within my pension. I circled it. This one. That evening, another email arrived, this time from Megan. No emojis, no hashtags, no pastel backgrounds. Just this, I don't know what we're supposed to do now. We have nothing. I know you hate me. But think of the baby. I stared at the screen. The heat from those words pressed hard against my chest, but I didn't reply. Not yet, because I wasn't planning a response. I was planning something else. 3 days passed. I didn't check my phone, didn't turn on the news. I bought fruit from the corner store, drank tea in the afternoons, and started journaling on the motel's complimentary notepad. Small routines, quiet ones. Then on a Sunday evening at 7:42 p.m., someone knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the peephole. Megan, hair messier than usual, baby wrapped in a soft pink blanket, a diaper bag over her shoulder like an accessory, not a necessity. Her eyes were puffy, but her makeup was fresh enough to suggest she'd cried after applying it. Linda, she called softly, I'm not here to fight, we don't know what to do anymore. Josh is falling apart, we lost the rental. They said we failed a credit check. Please, can I come in? I cracked the door 2 inches. The baby squirmed in her arms. She's yours too, Megan said, don't shut us out. I hadn't known the baby's name, I hadn't wanted to. I stepped aside. Megan walked in like someone entering a courtroom. You still keep it cold in here? She said, offering a smile like we were old friends catching up over tea. She sat carefully on the edge of the bed, bouncing the baby in rhythm. We really screwed up, she whispered. I said things I didn't mean. We were scared. I nodded, not in forgiveness, but to keep her talking. Josh is drowning, she added. We both are. Phones are on borrowed time. Our accounts are frozen. We don't know where to go. I watched her closely. Her voice wavered, but her eyes kept darting to the dresser, the window, my purse. And then I saw it. A thin black logo tag still attached to the diaper bag. Posh baby. Retail price, over $900. I'd seen it in a magazine left in the motel lobby. That's new, I said, pointing. She flinched, gift from a friend. Her voice was too quick. I said nothing. Just stood up and walked to the window. The rental car idling outside was a black SUV. Shiny. Clean, not the car of someone living on crumbs. You came here to get something, I said. I came for help. No, you came to film something. Her breath caught. Where is it? Linda. Phone. Purse. Whatever it is. I saw it in the bag when you sat down. You're recording this. Her lips parted, then shut. We just wanted proof, she said finally, in case you twisted things again. I stared at her. The baby whimpered. Megan shushed her with one hand while the other gripped the strap of the bag tighter. Get out, I said. Linda. Now, she didn't move. So I stepped closer. Closer than I'd ever been to her in anger. Let me be clear, I said quietly. I'm not your storyline. I'm not your villain, and I'm not your ATM. The words landed like stones. She stood slowly clutching the baby. She's your granddaughter. No, she's your child. Raise her better than you treat people. She walked to the door, opened it without another word. I watched from the window as she climbed into the SUV. The car pulled away without hesitation. I locked the door behind her. sat down on the bed. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, because I knew what had just happened. Megan hadn't come for reconciliation. She came for footage. She came to bait me into saying something cruel, something they could edit, post, turn into a plea for sympathy. I hadn't given it to her, but I wasn't finished. The next morning, I went to the courthouse and filed for a temporary restraining order. I brought everything: the texts, the visit, the screenshot of the diaper bag's price, the motel receipt proving their proximity, and the email from Megan begging for the baby. The clerk didn't flinch. "You're not the first," she said. "You won't be the last." That night, I returned to my room, opened my notebook, and wrote. They brought a baby to play victim. I brought receipts. Then I turned the page and started listing names. Not to punish, but to remember. People I trusted, people who hesitated, people I didn't know explanations to anymore. Because the next time someone came knocking, I wanted to be ready. 2 days later, a thick envelope slid under my door. Restraining order granted, stamped, sealed, real. I made 5 copies, one for the motel, one for the local police, one for Doreen, one for me, and one unsigned and unaccompanied I mailed to Josh and Megan's last known address. I attached a sticky note. You wanted legal, you got it. That night, I finally opened the email from the Charlotte local magazine. I didn't pitch a narrative, didn't ask for money, just sent everything. Deed, receipts, screenshots, photo of the diaper bag. Subject line: since they want to talk, let's talk. The next morning, the editor called. Her voice was warm, professional. "We believe you," she said. "Would you be willing to go on record?" "Yes," I said, "but you need to include one sentence, right at the top." She waited. I told her, "This is not revenge, this is clarity." The article ran the following Sunday. A 3-page feature titled, "When Help Becomes a Weapon, One Mother's Account of Financial Betrayal." It didn't go viral, it didn't break the internet or trend on Twitter, but it rippled quietly, deliberately. People read it, people talked about it. Not gossip, not slander. Discussion. The same Facebook group where Megan had sobbed over her eviction was suddenly filled with threads about housing ethics, inheritance rights, and the entitlement of adult children. My name appeared, not as a villain, not even as a victim, just as a person, a mother, a woman who had been erased and then quietly written herself back in. But that wasn't when I knew the tide had turned. That happened 5 days later at the local coffee shop. It was early. I had taken to walking there every other morning, not because the coffee was good, it wasn't, but because it felt like reclaiming something. The act of choosing where to sit, what to order, who to nod at. I stood in line, ordered a black coffee, no cream, and took my seat in the back corner near the window. Then I saw him, Josh, alone, hoodie pulled over his head, a cup in front of him untouched. He stared into it like he was trying to read his future in the foam. He didn't see me. I could have walked out. But then he looked up. Our eyes met. He didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't blink. Just looked. And in that look, I saw it. Not regret, not shame, just distance. Like the cord had been cut, the kind of distance that doesn't ask to be closed again. I stood up, tossed my cup, walked past him like a ghost. He didn't call after me. That night he emailed me. No subject line, just a sentence. I read the article. I won't contact you again. I'm sorry you felt like you had no choice. Not sorry for what he did. Sorry I felt it that way. I archived it. Didn't reply. Because there was nothing left to save. The next morning, the motel manager knocked gently and handed me a stack of forwarded mail. At the bottom, an envelope with a real estate agency's logo and a sticky note from Doreen. You've been approved. Keys are waiting. I opened the packet. 2-bedroom condo, 2nd floor, view of the water, quiet Wilmington complex for retirees and veterans. Move in next Friday. Rent just under budget. I stood there holding the paper in both hands, breathing slower than usual. I realized I hadn't checked over my shoulder in days, hadn't flinched at unknown numbers, hadn't doubted my right to exist without explanation. Later that evening, I updated my will, removed Josh's name, split everything between a local domestic abuse shelter, a literacy program for girls, and the animal rescue I used to volunteer at. Then I wrote one last email to my lawyer. If he ever challenges this, send everything, all of it, publicly. I didn't wait for a response. I knew he would understand. That weekend, a new text arrived, unfamiliar number, but I knew it instantly. Megan, 4 words. We lost everything. Congrats. I read it once, then deleted it. No reply, no rage, no reaction. Just stillness. I spent the evening packing, not because I was running, because I had finally stopped. They started the story by saying there's no space for you here. They ended it by proving I never needed their space at all. The condo was smaller than I imagined, but it was brighter. Sunlight drifted in like it had been waiting for me, slipping across the floor and curling into the corners like a cat. I stood in the entryway for a long minute before stepping fully inside. No shouting from upstairs, no footsteps slamming with frustration, no tense silences from behind closed doors. Just space, my space. The movers were late. I didn't care. I carried in the essentials myself, the red folder, the framed photo of James, my small suitcase of clothes, and a new notebook. I made tea using the old kettle that came with the place, walked onto the balcony barefoot. The ocean wasn't visible, but I could hear it. And for the first time in years, that was enough. My phone stayed on silent that entire week. I didn't check social media, didn't call old friends to explain myself, didn't tell anyone I'd moved. I unpacked one drawer at a time, filled the fridge with food I actually wanted to eat, bought 2 plants from a roadside market, watered them gently each morning. On Wednesday, I took a walk along the boardwalk. Nobody stared, nobody whispered. I passed a bookstore, a pier, and a seafood shack where a woman around my age was painting seashells at a folding table. She smiled at me, held one out. "Pick the one that calls to you," she said. I chose a blue shell with silver edges. She nodded. "Good choice. That one's for people who've just let go of something heavy." I thanked her, put it in my coat pocket. That night, I placed it on the kitchen counter next to my keys. I named it Peace. Days passed, then a week, then 10 days. I got into a rhythm. Coffee at 8, walk at 10, journal at 3. I signed up for an art class that met twice a week in the community rec room. My instructor, Walter, was 70, wore suspenders, and told the worst jokes I'd ever heard. But he remembered my name on the second day. One afternoon, he looked over my shoulder at my canvas and said, "You paint like someone who survived something." I smiled, because I have, and I meant it. I didn't talk about Josh in art class. Not to Walter, not to the woman named Mabel who sat next to me every Tuesday and always brought lemon candies in her bag. I didn't need to. The past had become a sealed drawer in my mind, labeled locked and no longer leaking. Until the letter came. It arrived on a Thursday in a plain white envelope postmarked from a P.O. box just outside Charlotte. No return address, but the handwriting on the front, I knew it immediately. Josh's. Sloppy rush like he was always trying to outrun himself. Inside were 4 lines. "I know I can't undo what I did. I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to know I'm trying." I named her Emily Linda Carter. I read it twice, then a third time, then folded it and placed it gently in the same drawer where I kept the voided deed and my updated will. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just let the words settle. Later that evening, I took a walk to the beach. The wind was sharp, but clean. It carried the scent of salt and something older, something like freedom. I stood barefoot in the sand, letting the water lap at my toes. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I thought about the baby, the one who now carried my name not as a burden but as a marker of something her parents never truly understood. Legacy. Not just money, not just property. Character. And I thought about the boy who once picked wildflowers for me and cried when I gave him back his own broken toy fixed with glue. That boy was gone. But maybe someone better was being born out of what he ruined. And that wasn't mine to fix. That wasn't my redemption arc to write. It wasn't even my grief anymore. It was something else. Relief. I turned back toward the boardwalk. The lights from the seafood shack blinked like tiny ships in the dark. Someone was playing a saxophone near the pier. I didn't recognize the tune, but it made me feel known. I walked home without looking back. The condo lights were soft and warm when I arrived. I curled up on the couch with a blanket and a book I'd been meaning to finish for years. No drama, no buzzing phone, no guilt woven into every sentence. Just stillness. Right before I turned out the light, my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number, no message. I didn't answer. Didn't wonder. I let it fade into the night like the tail end of a dream. Then I whispered to myself the same 5 words I had carried with me since that morning they told me to leave. No space here either. Goodbye. To this day, I don't know where Josh and Megan ended up. Maybe they rebuilt. Maybe they didn't. All I know is I didn't follow. I didn't check. I didn't hope. Because the greatest peace I found wasn't from walking away. It was from realizing I never needed their permission to stay gone. The days began to stretch like silk, soft, smooth, quiet. I no longer woke up with a pit in my stomach or checked my phone before brushing my teeth expecting another plea, another twist, another attempt at guilt disguised as reconciliation. I just lived. Morning started with coffee on the balcony, the cup warming my hands as the breeze whispered through the railing. The ocean still played its lullaby in the distance. I'd never seen it. My unit faced the parking lot, but I could hear it, and that was enough. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I went to art class. On Sundays, I walked to the bookstore and lost myself between aisles. I started buying books with colorful covers, the kind I used to avoid because they seemed too bright for a woman grieving. But I wasn't grieving anymore, not in the same way. One morning, Mabel from art class surprised me with a gift, a small hand-painted bookmark with my name on it. It had violets around the edges. "I just thought your name deserved something beautiful," she said. It was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in a long time. I didn't tell her how much it meant. I just nodded and slipped it into the novel I was carrying like a secret. Then came the email. From a real estate attorney, not mine, theirs. Megan and Josh had apparently filed a petition to pause the foreclosure proceedings retroactively. They were trying to argue undue influence and mental instability. I wasn't surprised. I was, however, prepared. I sent my lawyer everything: the restraining order, the signed deed, the foreclosure confirmation, and even the screenshots of Megan's text offering proof that they intended to kick me out before I ever raised my voice. My lawyer's reply was simple. "This is not a case. This is noise. I'll handle it." And he did. The petition was dismissed within 72 hours. Josh tried once more through a legal loophole to claim I acted out of spite and financial retaliation. He failed, again. That night, I pulled out the letter he'd written, the one where he said he named her Emily Linda Carter. I held it in my hand, and I realized something. Naming someone after you doesn't mean they inherit your strength. It doesn't mean they understand your sacrifice. It only means they'll carry your syllables. And I had spent too many years carrying them. So I walked outside, sat on the steps of the condo building, and lit a small candle, the kind you buy for $2 at the pharmacy. I held the letter over the flame. It burned quickly. No dramatics, no wind, just heat and ash. I watched until it became dust, then swept it into the bushes with the side of my shoe. When I stood, I felt lighter, like my name had finally returned to me. Not as a plea, not as a weapon, as a truth, mine. The next week, I started volunteering at the local library, just 2 afternoons a week, sorting books, guiding seniors through the new self-checkout kiosks, sharing laughs over missing reading glasses. No one knew my story. No one cared. And I loved that. On my second shift, a little girl named Clara tugged at my sleeve and asked if I'd read to her. We sat in the corner of the children's section and read The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Her giggle when I did the butterfly voice made something in me soften, something I thought I had buried when Josh changed the locks on my place in his heart. But it was still there, not for him, for me. The ability to nurture, to care, to love. And this time, without the cost of being discarded after. After the library shift, I stopped at the cafe and ordered a slice of pie, just because I wanted to. The waitress asked if I was celebrating something. I smiled. Yes, I said, myself. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I received the second letter. This one was handwritten, 2 different pen, different envelope, but the same unmistakable handwriting. Josh's, neater this time, slower, as if each letter was walking instead of running. Inside, folded carefully, was a single photo. Me and Josh. He was maybe 5. We were sitting on the hood of my old Buick, both of us grinning, his arms sticky with melted popsicle. I had a sun hat on. My eyes looked tired but happy. On the back, in that same looping script, he'd written, "I remember this day. You let me ride in the front seat and we got ice cream before dinner. I didn't say thank you then. I'm saying it now." There was no return address again, no plea, just the photo, just the memory. I held it in my lap for a long time. Then I looked around my living room, the soft rug under my feet, the 2 books stacked on the end table, the plant by the window whose leaves had started to open wide each morning like it trusted the light. I had made this life, and it was full, not loud, not showy, but full. I placed the photo in a small wooden box I kept in the closet. It wasn't a shrine, just a place where past lives could rest without bleeding into the present. The next day at the library, Clara asked if she could draw me something. She came back with a picture of a blue house with flowers all around it and a smiling woman with big round glasses. "That's you," she said proudly, "and that's your happy house." I didn't have the heart to tell her I didn't wear glasses. I pinned the drawing to my fridge anyway. That evening, I received another message, this time a voicemail, from someone I hadn't heard from since the beginning. Josh's sister, my niece. "Hey, Aunt Linda, I saw the article. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for not reaching out sooner. I should have asked your side. That was wrong of me." Pause. If you ever want to come visit us in Asheville, you've got a room here, with a real closet and a real bed, no strings. I didn't return the call, not yet, but I saved the message, labeled it Olive Branch. Because that's what it felt like, not a bridge, not a rope to pull me back, just a small stretch of shade in the heat of everything. The following Thursday after art class, Walter walked me to my car. "You seem lighter this week," he said. I smiled. "I think I am." He tipped his cap, then added, "Grief can be loud, but healing is usually a whisper." That night, I finally allowed myself to look at one of Megan's old videos, the viral TikTok, the crying face, the bump, the cardboard sign. I watched it not as the accused, but as a stranger. And I felt nothing. No guilt, no fire, just distance. Like watching an old movie where you once played a role, but forgot your lines halfway through. I closed the app and opened my photo gallery instead. Scrolled to the one of my living room in the early morning light, taken just 2 days after moving in. A cup of tea on the windowsill, the sea breeze moving the curtains gently like a lullaby. I saved that one as my background. Because it told the real story. Not the version where I was heartless, not the version where I was a martyr, but the truth. A woman who gave everything, then finally gave something to herself. Winter arrived quietly. In the city I now called home, it wasn't the kind of winter with snow-dusted roofs or the sound of boots crunching ice. It was softer, crisper air, earlier sunsets, and in the evening the light that spilled into my little condo turned golden, almost honey-like. That's when I started writing letters, not to send, just to say what had never been said. To Josh, to Megan, even to myself. I wrote about the ache of watching someone you love forget who you really are, about holding a casserole dish at their front door knowing you were no longer welcome, about the moment I stopped calling what they did to me just a misunderstanding. But I also wrote about the first time I laughed again, truly deeply laughed at a joke Walter told about a lopsided watermelon at the farmer's market. And the time Clara painted my portrait and gave me a rainbow-colored face because, as she said, you shine like that. I wrote until my hand cramped, then I wrote some more. It became a kind of ritual, a reclamation. Each letter folded and stacked in a ceramic bowl beside my bed reminded me that I was no longer voiceless, even if I spoke only to the page. One Friday afternoon, as I returned home from the library, there was a knock on my door. It was Walter, holding a small, worn book. "I thought you might like this," he said. "It's a collection of poems about women who started over." He looked sheepish. "The librarian said it's a bit feminist." I told her, "Good." I laughed and took the book. That night, I read it cover to cover, stopping only to underline the lines that felt like me. She did not crumble. She rearranged. I copied that one on a sticky note and placed it on my bathroom mirror. That Sunday, I cooked for myself. Not out of necessity, not because someone expected it, but because I wanted to. I made rosemary chicken and roasted carrots just like I used to when Josh was little. And I played music, soft jazz, and danced barefoot in the kitchen while the oven filled the room with warmth. Halfway through dinner, I looked around and whispered aloud, "I am not lonely." And it was true. Because loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of being seen. And for the first time in a very long time, I saw myself. Clearly, tenderly, without apology. Later that night, I took the photo Josh had sent the one of us on the Buick and placed it in a frame. Not because I missed the boy he was, but because I was proud of the woman I had been. The mother who kept showing up, who loved even when it cost her everything. And now I was the woman who finally chose to stop showing up where she wasn't welcomed and instead opened her own door. To joy, to peace, to something like freedom. The next morning when I woke up, the yellow light was pouring into my room again. And for the first time in years, I didn't dread the day. I reached for the book of poems and read one final line before I got up. There are rooms inside you still untouched by sorrow? Open them. So I did. Spring crept in like an old friend who had been away too long, quiet, warm, and full of small, deliberate kindnesses. The kind of kindness you don't always notice right away. Like the jasmine blooming near the sidewalk, or the barista remembering your name, or the way your reflection looks a little less tired than you remembered. It had been a year. A year since I left the house I paid for but was never allowed to call home. A year since I packed only what mattered and nothing else. A year since I stopped asking to be chosen. I stood on my porch one morning watching the ocean shift under the sun when I heard it. Laughter, a child's laughter. I turned. A little girl, maybe 3, was chasing a gull down the boardwalk, her mother close behind. Something about the way she moved made my breath catch. Not because she looked familiar, but because she looked free. Her mother scooped her up, and the two of them locked eyes in a way I remembered. A way that said, "You are my whole world, and I will not forget that." I smiled and turned back to my tea. That night, I took out the very last letter I had written. It was to myself. I hadn't read it since the night I moved in. It said, "Linda, this is not the end of anything. This is the beginning of everything. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are the one who finally saw the fire behind the smoke and chose to walk out of the house instead of waiting to be burned. That is not weakness. That is grace in motion." I cried when I read it again, not out of sadness, but out of recognition. I had become the woman I once wrote to. I no longer needed to explain the silence, no longer needed to justify the leaving, no longer needed to shrink just to keep someone else from feeling small. I was 74. I had no patience left for shallow apologies or performative tears. But I had time. Time for walks on the beach, for art class and jazz on Tuesdays, for lemon candies shared between friends, for little girls laughing, for books unfinished and dreams not yet named. I even called my niece back. We didn't say much, but there was warmth in her voice, like someone dusting off an old photograph and placing it gently on the mantle again. And maybe one day I'll visit. Not to be forgiven, not to forgive, just to be. To stand in a kitchen that once held my name in hushed tones and know I no longer need their permission to be whole. This story doesn't end with revenge, or a courtroom, or a viral video to set the record straight. It ends with a woman, me, standing in the sun, holding a mug of tea barefoot on a porch she chose for herself. No begging, no noise, no drama. Just peace. Because sometimes the loudest revolution is the life you quietly rebuild after they counted you out. And if no one's ever told you this before, you are not a burden. You are the beginning. Linda.